Okay, so here I have my laptop. Ignore, I think that this is kind of bothering, but whatever. Um, so today I'm going to be talking about some stories from high school. I don't know. I mean, I call them stories, but they're actually the reason of all of my trauma. Why? Because it was a lot. It was really a lot to like process at the time. Um, but yeah, I just really wanted to talk about some high school experiences. Originally, I wanted people to like people that I know who went to the same high school to share, but I kind of didn't ask in time. So I guess there's gonna be a part two to this, which is fun because I'm excited. I feel like I would love to have people on the podcast talk about their experiences and how it was for them and all of that stuff. So that would be really cool. So today I'm sitting in my living room and if you couldn't already tell by the sofa. um, and just before we start, I'm not gonna disclose the name of the school. I'm not gonna talk about like where it is, or anything that has to do with like, the name and the place and all of that stuff. Why? Mainly for two reasons. Number one, I don't want to give them like I don't want to give them a reason for them to sue me, even though I don't think they would. Because they're too poor for that. They don't have money for that. So that's number one. And number two, because I want to protect not only my privacy, but privacy of those who went to school with me and those who are currently going to that school. I feel like it's just something that is common sense. And yeah, so if you know me and you know what school I went to, or you also went to school with me, please do not disclose the school name, place, or anything that could possibly lead to people undergoing where it is or what school it is, because again, it's just for everyone's privacy. And yeah, I just feel like that's very important. So I feel like I'm gonna mainly be talking about like my high school experience. I feel like high school was just mm, it was a big thing. I think for me the most like weird slash traumatic slash fun experiences happened in high school. A lot of them are super stupid because a lot of stupid people were involved. But other than that, like, I don't know. I don't know how to like explain it. So let's just start off with the first like story that comes to mind. So for me, the first story that comes to mind is it's so funny because um, it was so dumb. So we had, okay, so for context, I had an accounting class. I took accounting in school. I know, why would I do that to myself? I ask myself that question every day, but you know what? It's too late now. I graduated 4 years ago, so what can you do? But I was taking an accounting class, and accounting professor was really nice, but he was a little bit weird, and I would say quirky in a sense because there were some things that he would say that was like, what? Why would you say that? Also, he had a very like bad memory, so he nicknamed everyone like different things because he couldn't remember either their first name or last name or sometimes both. So, I remember like I think in the first month or so of our like accounting classes, he dubbed me BBC News. For context, I have what people would, I guess, call a very native accent or an American accent, even though I'm not either of those things. Is English my first language? Yes. Where does my accent come from? A lot of TV, because that's where I grew up on TV. Like, I grew up watching a lot of TV and and being on the internet. That's basically it. So that's where I get my accent from. Also from my mom, but that's a different story. I'm not going to get into that. But essentially, I I have always had a very clear accent, and he kind of forgot my name. And so and I don't even remember how it came to be. I just remember that one day in the class, we were all talking, and then instead of referring to me by my first name, he refers to me by BBC News. And I'm just like, huh? Who? What? And everyone's like looking at him, and he's like, yeah, you. And he points at me, and I'm like, oh, me? And ever since then, I was BBC News. So add that to the list of nicknames that I have. Um, it's really funny because BBC News is it's British. so I don't know why he used BBC. Actually, now that I think of it, why did he even use BBC News if it's not even a British accent? I don't know. I don't know. I guess that's the first thing that came into his head. But that's a funny story, and yeah. Okay, so clearly this teacher was quirky and weird, but like it wasn't a huge deal. He was really fun to be around, and he was a really nice person. So, you know, not in the sense of like, oh wow, we didn't like him. No, none of that. He was really cool. And every time you would ask him a question, he would always be like, that's a good question. Like, it didn't matter any question that you would ask that had to do with accounting, he would be like, that's a very good question. That's a good question. Literally, in that, maybe not in that accent, but like somewhere around there. And I remember and I remember that, like, everybody found it very funny that every time you would ask him any question, like literally anything that had to do with accounting, he would be like, oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. So it kind of became like a joke in the class, right? So it kind of became like it was just a joke in the class, and it was a running joke. A little bit later, after finding out that he would say that all the time, a classmate of ours, like mid into the year, found his Facebook account, and she went through it. She saw some pictures. She sent them in the class group chat, and like nobody was gonna do anything with that. It was just funny to see, you know, some cringe pictures. I'm not gonna lie, they were pretty cringy, and it was funny to see. However, one of our classmates took one of those pictures, edited it, and made a meme with his face, with like the caption saying, "That's a good picture." Sorry, no, no, no. That's a very good question, and it like she posted it on her story, and it was very funny. Like it was just a meme, and it was something that only like our class would understand. So she thought that when she posted it, nobody was gonna like really get it. Um, I can't believe, I can't believe that this actually happened. I can't believe that this was actually done. We were so stupid. We were 16-year olds who were doing AS level exams, and Excel sucks, so we were just stressed and traumatized. Like, could you blame us? I feel so bad that we did this. I can't believe we did this. But anyways, um it became a joke in the class, obviously, and we thought like, oh, it's not gonna be a big deal. The next day we go to school, and our class teacher, or like, I don't know, I think that's like a homeroom teacher, I think. Like, yeah, our homeroom teacher slash class teacher walks in, and she's mad. Like, she walks into the class in the morning, and she's so mad, and we're like, uh oh, like, what happened? What did we do? And she's just staring at us. And she goes like, why? Like, I think she went something like, why did you girls do this? Or why did you think this was a good idea? Or something like that. And everyone's just looking around at each other like, what is she talking about? Is she, what? And then I think she's like, no, you will see. HM will come, and then we will all discuss this. By HM, I mean like headmistress. And like we were all scared because we were like, what happened? Like we don't know. And I think she couldn't hold it in anymore. She was that angry. And she goes like, you're making these weird editing pictures with your teachers, pata nahi kya. And we were like, oh, she found the meme. But the thing is that like, how would she have found the meme, or how would have anyone like from school, the school staff, like find the meme? Cause like that meme was posted to a private account from my classmate. So like, how does that how does that make any sense? You know what I mean? Like, how does that work? So nobody was really sure like who leaked the picture. But later, I think like a couple hours later, the headmistress comes into our class, and she goes on this whole rant. Like every time, she's gonna be a very recurring character in my stories because she was no fun at all. In fact, she was awful, to say the least. She goes on a rant. Essentially, she goes like, "You are big girls, you don't know to do. What are you doing this? What is wrong with you? You have these filthy things in your mind. I remember that very vividly. I remember she said that we had filthy things in our minds, and I remember going home and telling my mom, and my mom was like, "What the hell is wrong with her? Why would she say such a thing?" But yeah, it was really weird. She continued the rant, going like the HM kept saying like, "You girls don't know where," and then she starts interrogating us. Okay, and she goes like, "Who took out these pictures? Like who made this? Not who took out the pictures. Who made this?" Everyone in our class was really close, so no one was gonna tell. No one was gonna be like, "Oh, like she did it, she did it." Like no one was gonna do that. We were all very close. We were all really good friends. And so no one was gonna go like, "Oh, like no one was gonna call out anyone." And so the class is dead silent. Like no one's saying a word. You can't even hear like breathing. Like everybody was so scared. You couldn't if it was so eerie because like literally you couldn't hear anything, no one was breathing, everyone was scared, there was so much anxiety in the air, so much tension, and the teachers were like repeating the same question like, who made the picture? You guys have to say something, it's your fault. If you don't say anything, you're all gonna get in trouble, yada yada. But like, even though we were all scared, like we didn't want to get in trouble, and at the same time we didn't want to get anyone else in trouble, or at least that was what I felt. Um, Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. Um, but like it was so like anxiety. It was so much anxiety. It was so stressful, and we didn't know what to do, and we didn't know what to say. And I think someone ended up saying like, "Oh, like I took out the pictures, but I didn't edit it," or something like that. Um, and that was what like calmed the HM's nerves and like our teachers and everything like that. And for the rest of the day, like our teachers were super mad at us, and yeah, that happened. Later we found out that it was an ex-student, like somebody who had graduated from our school, who followed the classmate who made the picture, who made the meme. um we found out that she was like very buddy buddy with the school staff, and that she essentially sent the meme. She took a screenshot, she saw it, she took a screenshot and she sent it to the teacher, and then the teacher who like made a huge deal out of it. Instead of just like kind of realizing that we were all 16-year-olds and we were stupid and we didn't really know what we were doing or the consequences of what was going to happen. So, um, I'm sorry. We were just 16. I don't know how to I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying like it was something we did, and like if you think about it, it's low key kind of funny. Like uh, uh, I don't know what else to say. What's another story that I could tell that's like a good story? Ooh, I have a good story. Okay, so this one time I'm having a lot of technical issues with the makeshift stand. Who knew a milk carton would be so bad at keeping a microphone up? Anyways, um okay, so this is the story of how we were all told we would get food poisoning. Yeah, it's a whole story, but let's get into it because it's actually really cool. Like not cool but funny. Where do I start with the story? Okay, so one of the days, like I think this was also like mid into the school year, one of like we were all like talking, we were 13 in the class, and like our class was of 13 people. And we were like, "Oh, like why don't we like not bring lunch tomorrow and like order something from like the restaurant outside?" Because there was like a Lebanese restaurant, like literally across the street from our school. And I don't know if that's like giving too much information and that could like leak the school's location. I don't think so, because like Lebanese like restaurants are a dime dozen. Anyways, there was like a Lebanese restaurant like across the street from the school. And so oftentimes what we would do for lunch is not bring lunch, or whenever we didn't bring lunch, we would just order something from There was like a whole underground like mafia deal with the whole restaurant thing, which I'll get into later. So sometimes if we didn't bring like, lunch to school, we just order it from like the restaurants that were around the school, and then have them, deliver it to the school, like makes sense, right? That's what you would do. However, um there was like this time around when we did that, there was like a huge like problem, and that's where the story comes in. So the day before, all 13 of us are like, "Oh, hey, like why don't we just, order food instead of like, um getting lunch because yeah, we're almost like at final season and exam season, so we're not going to get a chance to like, just do something fun all 13 of us." So this is where the problem began. Okay. So one of my classmates was like, "Oh, yeah, like I can have my mom place the order for us at around lunchtime." So we're like, "Okay, cool. Let's do that." And so the next day comes around, everyone's super excited. We're having like a little, like eating party, food party in like our little classroom, all 13 of us. It's gonna be all fun. Everyone's looking forward to it. And so our classmate, like before lunchtime rolls around, she goes to the headmistress's office because we weren't allowed to have like cell phones at school. I don't know for what reason. But we weren't allowed to. So she went to like the head. So like if you wanted to call your parents or something like that, you have to go to the headmistress's office, and it was a whole deal. But she goes to the headmistress's office. She calls her mom. She tells her mom like, "Hey, like, could you like place the order, like soon or like in a couple minutes or whatever." So her mom is like, "Okay, cool." Her mom does that. And the food arrives to like the reception of the school, if you will. However, the people at reception were really, really, let's just, I don't want to say a bad word. So let's just say that they were real big party poopers. Because instead of actually delivering the food to our class, they were like, "This is so much food." There were 13 sandwiches, okay? I think, no, there were 12 sandwiches because one of us didn't want a sandwich. Um, there were 12 sandwiches, and they're like, "Oh, this is so much food. Let's report this to the headmistress." And so they did. They called the headmistress, and the food doesn't end up in our class. It ends up at the headmistress's office. And we're just like, what? What do you, what are we supposed to have for lunch? Excuse me, ma'am. And so the headmistress is like, she comes to our class, and she tells us, like, "You girls, you ordered this much food from the Lebanese restaurant, and you cannot do this one. This is not good. This is illegal." And we're just like, what crime? Like what crime? Like, oh, okay. I'm a criminal now for wanting to eat a Lebanese sandwich. Uh, and her whole like thing was that, like, you cannot order from the restaurants outside. You have to bring food from home, because if we allow you to eat this one, you will get food poisoning, and then your parents will tell us that it is our fault. Huh? What? I'm sorry. Where does that logic come from? What do you mean? It was fresh made at the restaurant across the street, and you're telling me I'm gonna get food poisoning from a restaurant across the street who made it fresh like 5 minutes ago. What? Food poisoning? And then she goes like, "I have to confiscate this one. Who had it delivered? Yada yada." So the classmate whose mom had the order done, sorry, no, the classmate whose mom ordered, um, she like goes like, "Oh, like my mom ordered it," and then the headmistress is like, "Oh, you have to come with me to the office. You have to." She had a really weird way of talking, so I can't really mimic it, but like she essentially was like, you have to come to my office. You have to call your mom now because your mom has to pick up this one. Uh, she and oh my god, like I am I'm so mad just like reliving this like experience because we were all so hungry. We were all so excited for those sandwiches and we didn't get our amazing sandwiches, which by the way, like they're still to date one of the best sandwiches I've ever had, but like what do you mean? What do you mean? You're gonna have her mom take them back? What? And so the classmate, she goes downstairs to like the headmistress's office and she calls up her mom. And as soon as her mom picks up, she's about to speak, and the headmistress is like, no, you're not allowed to talk to your mom because I know you're gonna do some brainwashing on her. Brainwash her own mom. Girl, what do you mean? And it was so weird cuz like she like the headmistress always assumed that we were basically like evil. They were basically evil and that we had no actual like morals or anything like that, which is also a story I'll tell you guys. Um but like it was so weird cuz like she always assumed that we just wanted to do bad and that we always wanted to do bad things. And so like that comment of brain like who's gonna brainwash your own mom? Really? Like I can't believe she actually said that. Anyways, um so like the headmistress calls her like talks to her mom or whatever. Her mom comes and like picks up the food and we're all like what are we going to do now? Like what are we going to do now? Like we were waiting on that food. We were so excited and now we haven't had lunch. Help. We like the headmistress, she comes in again, she goes like, you girls can never do this again. You know that you cannot get the food from the outside. If you want food, you have to bring from home. Otherwise, you will get food poisoning. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And like, this was a very recurring like topic in her speeches and lectures, which was like, as girls, we weren't allowed to do anything other than like come to school and go home. And anything else aside from that that we wanted to do had to be done in our parents' presence. Um, because we didn't have brains of our own and our parents hadn't, parented us enough to be good people. Or at least that's what it felt like. Because all of her speeches and like lectures and so on and so forth were always like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, and you're girls. And I hate this now. And this is one of the things that I hate because it's part of my trauma. But she would always say the word big girls. She would always say, you are all big girls now. You should understand. And the thing is that that was like our school's like manipulation tactic to convince us to feel guilty over doing literally the most smallest things. It's, what? Anyways, back to the story. I'm sorry I went through a little tangent there. Um, but essentially, what was I saying again? I forgot. Oh, right. She goes like, we're gonna get food poisoning if we order food from like outside or eat at a restaurant or whatever. And so we're all like, okay, but like, what are we gonna do now? Because like we're really hungry. Like we didn't bring lunch because we were told and we had planned that we were just gonna, eat sandwiches from this and now we can't because you took them away from us. Like, now what are we supposed to do? So she's like, don't worry, we'll like figure it out for you. So she leaves our classroom, and I think at the end of the day, like literally before we're supposed to go home, it's last period, she calls us into like this weird storage room that the school always had on the first floor. It was really weird. Um, she calls all 13 of us there. And she goes through her like little rant again of like, you cannot order the food, you can't do this one, you can't do that one, like you are big girls, um, you don't want to get food poisoning. If you get the food poisoning, then your parents will blame us, and we cannot. We have to take care of you here. We have to make sure that you are healthy and all of this. Um, and in that rant, she gives us cookies. And you know what? Like, when you think cookies, like at least when I think cookies, I think Oreos. I think like Cheekies. I think Jeepies. I think Prince biscuits, like that kind of thing. She gave us, I think they were called Good Day biscuits, और वो मतलब वो चाय के साथ पीते हैं, लेकिन चाय भी नहीं मिली. अ, चाय भी नहीं मिला और बस सिर्फ बिस्किट. And that's it. And I remember in the class, like while we were waiting for, I think one of our classmates was like, "Hey, like I'm gonna bring like Coca-Colas tomorrow." And like the next day she brought 11 Coca-Colas and one Pepsi because we had a debate the day before all of this happened of whether Coca-Cola or Pepsi is better, and out of all 13 of us, um well, I should say 12 because we were 13 in total in the class, but there was always this one girl who never wanted to be friends with us and would never like participate in any of the things that we would do in the class or any of our conversations. She'd kind of just like look at us or she'd read a book and that's it. We tried to make friends with her, but she never really seemed like she wanted to be friends with us. So I guess, yeah. What can you do? I know, right? So yeah, that was something that happened, and that's the end of that story. We got biscuits at the end of the day. We were all starving, and we went home and probably had really, really fulfilling lunches. So yeah, that's like another funny story that happened. It wasn't funny at the time, but now that you think about it, it is funny because like what was wrong with that auntie? I don't know. Food poisoning कहाँ से होगा? I don't know. Also, if you're wondering what happened to the sandwiches, they all went bad. Yeah. So, I guess I guess there's that. Um I have two more stories. The next one is pretty brief. So all of this, like those last two stories happened in 2017. This was in grade 11 when I was in grade 11, or what people call junior year of high school. Um yeah, this one is from grade 12. This next one is from grade 12. This was around 2018. I think like relatively early in the year. In grade 12, we went from a class of 13 people to just 5. And this is important in a minute. Um, the 5 of us were like, "Hey, like why don't we take a little bit of like an initiative and talk about mental health to like, grade 8 to grade 12 classes cuz like mental health is a very big issue and like nobody's talking about it in our school." So we proposed the idea to the headmistress and we told her, like, we really want to do this project. We want to make a presentation, creating awareness in the school um, about mental health and, like, how, suicide prevention and how, there's a school counselor who, by the way, had a newsletter that was posted on one of like the like boards at school and literally nobody ever read it. um I'm so confused. Why? Why? I don't know. Our school didn't believe in mental health issues, but that's a different thing. So we were like, we want to take initiative on this. We want to, create this like presentation campaign sort of thing. And so we went to the headmistress. We told her. She was like, "All right, prepare it, and we'll figure it out. We'll tell you when you can present it." So we went to the like school counselor. We had a lot of help from her. We created the whole presentation, and we were really really excited to present it because this is something that was very important to all 5 of us. We were like, mental health is a very big issue and it's not talked about in our schools. So let's open up that conversation. Um, we never did open that conversation because the day of the presentation, we went to the headmistress's office. We were like, we really need the auditorium. Could you please like make sure that we get the auditorium at this and this hour so that we can, do the presentation. And everybody in our like grade like all of grade 12, like there was a different class of grade 12 as well. There was science and then there was commerce. We were commerce. Like everyone, like our whole grade 12 was like super excited for this presentation because everybody was like just as concerned about mental health, if not at least they were excited to like see what we were going to present. And then it was what we call in Costa Rica un alegrón de burro, which if you translate it literally is like, how do you, alegrón is like the happiness of a donkey. If you that's how I would like literally translate it. But it's actually slang, and it actually in Costa Rica it's slang, and it actually means like all that build up for nothing. Hence why, the happiness to see a donkey. That's basically it. If now that I think about it, the literal translation also kind of makes sense. So yeah, it was un alegrón de burro because we were all so excited. And then the day of, we're all like, we're ready. We're wearing, okay, so we had a white uniform, and we would usually wear white for anything that was like a very important occasion. So whether we had like a field trip or a presentation or something along those lines, we always had to wear white. And so that day we were wearing white. We were all ready. We had made sure like our uniforms were like nicely ironed, and like our scarves, because we had scarves, were like all wrinkle free. Everybody's moisturized, and their skin's looking good. Everybody's ready for this. We go to the HM's office. We're like super excited, and then she goes like, huh, what do you mean? No, 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 we will not do this one today. You come tomorrow. Tomorrow we will do the presentation. And we were like, okay, I guess, because her excuse was the auditorium is being used. It's not ready right now. Or at least I think that's what the excuse was. Next day rolls around, we're all ready, scarves wrinkle free, ironed uniform, skin looking fresh, everybody excited. We go to the FM's office, and she goes like, "Oh, not today. You cannot do today because there's some problem. Technical issues. You cannot present this one." So we're like, "All right, we'll just like when do we do it?" She goes like, "Just you do it tomorrow." We're like, okay, cool. So, the same thing happens. Next day rolls around, uniform ironed, scarf wrinkle free, skin looking fresh. Everybody's excited. We're finally doing this. We walk into the HM's office, and she goes like, no, you cannot do this one. So, it's the third time that she said this, and we're kind of starting to get tired. So, the next day rolls around. Well, she was like, you guys can do it tomorrow. So the next day rolls around. Some of our scarves are not, they're pretty wrinkly because nobody cared anymore. White uniform still looking fresh though. We're looking a little bit tired, eye bags under our eyes after all the research that we did for this presentation. And, we go to her office the next day, and she goes like, you can't like do it today. We're at this point, we're getting really tired. And there's only 5 days of school a week. So, and she had already rejected us 4 times. So we go the next day. It's a Thursday because UAE at the time had a Sunday through Thursday school week. And then Fridays and Saturdays used to be the weekends. They changed that, like, I think last year. When I was in school, it was still working on that like thing. So the last day of the school week was Thursday. So on Thursday, we're all ready. We, come to school. We're all ready to do the presentation. We're a little bit bummed because at this point we're kind of expecting for it to be, canceled at this point. So me and like we were told like by the headmistress like, "Oh yeah, today's the day. Like you guys are going to do it." So we're like, okay, cool. We go to the the school counselor's office because we need to consult her about our presentation, just to like for her to like supervise everything, make sure that our presentation didn't have like any errors or faults or whatever it is. And while we were there, she happened to call. I was with another classmate of mine, so 2 of us were at the school counselor's office, and then while we were there, like the headmistress called the other 3 classmates that I had who were in class. They go to the office, they get scolded. And then when we get back to class, they tell us that the headmistress was mad. She was like, "Why do you want to do this presentation anyways? Why you want to do this presentation? What you need to talk about this one mental health? This is no need. It's not big problem. Who you're targeting?" And that's when we realized that she thought that we were trying, and I forgot like a little bit of a detail here, but while we were making the presentation, like the week before this, she came to our classroom and she goes like, "What are you guys gonna talk about in the presentations?" In the presentation. I don't know why I made it plural. And we explained to her we're gonna talk about like, different mental health issues and like, suicide prevention and all of that stuff. Like, when to go to a doctor, when to realize like maybe you have a problem, maybe a loved one has an issue like depression or anxiety. We want to talk about more common things, and then maybe we'll talk about a little bit more of like specific disorders. Um, and she stops us in our tracks and she goes like, "You cannot say the word suicide." And we're just all staring at her like, what do you mean? And she goes like, "You cannot use this word. It's too much triggering. We don't want that the students they see this presentation and then they also want to, And we're like, how are we supposed to do suicide prevention without using the word suicide? I'm I'm confused. Like how does that work? Like explain to me, how does that work? And so that's why when she tells like our classmates, or like, "Who are you targeting?" She in her head had assumed that we were trying to use this whole presentation to cause someone to self-delete. I'm I'm in shock and awe of how she came to that conclusion all by herself. Like how do you how do you have like how do you believe that 16, 17, 18-year olds who are genuinely trying to make a presentation to create awareness of mental health issues, and your first thought is like, "Oh, they're trying to kill someone. They're trying to make someone harm themselves. They're trying to make someone like, do a whole control or delete thing." Uh you can't you can't how do you think that? How do you just randomly go like, "Oh yeah, these girls, they don't have good intentions. They don't want to help people. They're trying to get somebody killed. They're trying to actually provoke someone's like like I'm it's so weird." And like we were all really bummed out about it, and we were like, "How do you want us, like, how could you think that?" Right? And she had convinced our teachers that like that is what we wanted to do. Our class teacher was really nice, and she had actually genuinely not thought that. And she was really sad that we weren't able to do that presentation, and including everyone in our grade, who in like grade 12 was also pretty bummed out that we weren't able to like, do the presentation on mental health. And this is not a funny story, but it's definitely something that our school did not like advocate for, which is like, student mental health. Also, in fact, we had a school counselor who literally did not do anything. She got paid for not doing anything because um, students weren't allowed to like go to the school counselor without a appointment. And like I get the whole appointment thing, but the thing is that you had to go first to the headmistress and tell her that you wanted an appointment. So she would make the appointment for you. And on top of that, you had to explain to her why you needed an appointment. And usually like school counselors have, like what's it called? Like student counselor confidentiality, I think it's called, where like, they're not allowed to like tell anyone else why the student is going to the counseling, in the first place, for whatever reason, be it mental health or not. Like, still, whatever reason that they're going for, they're not supposed to tell unless it's like something that's very dire and like very it could cause like a bigger problem or whatever. They're really worried about someone, or they need to like advise the parents to get professional help, whatever it is. That's the only reason that I think that they could have like tell. But our head, like the administration and the headmistress was like so strict and rigid about these things that like you literally could not go to the school counselor without an appointment and without explaining to her why you needed an appointment in the first place. And if she deemed that your reason was not good enough, then you couldn't go to the school counselor. And it was like the weirdest like thing. I never personally went to the school counselor. I didn't even know our school had a counselor until my last year of high school. It's crazy. And if anybody has like, I don't know, stories of their own, please let me know, because like I really want to know if your school had something similar. Even if we didn't go to the same school, like I'm just talking in general, like if your school had a school counselor and like how that was managed, were your school a little bit more like, was your school a little bit more organized with like school counselors and like, you know, actually making sure that the student was like the students were okay, or if there was just like a giant mess like in our school. I also realized that I forgot to mention the underground food restaurant deal. So here's the funny thing. Okay, so in our school, you technically, you couldn't like bring cell phones to school, right? Even though like lots of people brought their cell phones to school, but you weren't allowed to like bring your cell phones to school. So if you wanted like, you know, food from a restaurant from around the school or something, you had to talk to the cleaning ladies. We would usually call them khalas. Khala in Urdu is like auntie from your mom's side. I think that's the best way to explain it. And these khalas, you had have like some of them, some of them would do this and some of them wouldn't. But there was always this one khala or like one aunt, like cleaning lady, who you would always go to, and you'd be like, okay, I want you to get me like this sandwich from the Lebanese restaurant across the street. And she'd be like, okay. And she would charge you the price of the sandwich and commission. This auntie had a whole business at school. And yeah, I just thought that that was kind of like funny to share because like I didn't know that this existed, and I remember it was my classmates and like my friends who told me like, oh yeah, like we can get food like this. It was like, and like the best part is that administration had no idea that this was going on. Um, and it's I'm in shock and awe about how people just come up with these things. And honestly, I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of footage, and those are like the three main stories that I wanted to talk about. I feel like now that I talk about them, they're not that like, I thought they were gonna be funnier, but I feel like they're not. I feel like they're just experiences that I had. School for me was very traumatic, which I'll talk about in a different episode because this is something that I do want to get into. But I also want to get feedback from friends and from people who I know that went to the same like school as I did, because everybody had different experiences, some good, some bad. We all agree that it was traumatic, at least from people that I know personally. And everybody has different stories, and everybody was like in a different like stage in life and like different mindsets, different outlooks, um, all of that stuff. So I feel like it would be so much nicer and so much more fair too to like give people like a voice, and even if they don't want to like have an interview on the podcast, that they can like, just talk about their experience through me, and I give them that platform to like, just read what they've written and things that they've gone through. I feel like it's fair to do that. I'm really excited. I really hope that people will want to like share their stories from, because like I know people from who are my seniors, and I also know people who are my juniors, so they have like very different experiences compared to mine. So I really want to like, share that, because like just, I don't know, everybody has really cool backgrounds and also like very different stories, and I don't know, I find the like all these stories to be really cool and fun to listen and understand why, they happened. um I don't know if I should still I feel like I this isn't a very long episode. And again, I feel like maybe my stories weren't that entertaining. um but I have lots more stories from my personal life and from school, which I will be talking about. But I feel like if I like cram them all into like one episode, it's gonna be like a 3 hour long episode, and I don't want that. So yeah, I'll probably make a part two to this, nightmare school episode. I'm really excited to do that. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate you. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and any other like podcasting platform. Um, my socials again are all, linked down below, as well as like the podcast is also linked down below. If you want to work with me, you can email me. And yeah, that's about it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for stopping by. Take care, stay weird, and until then, bye. Man, I don't know how I lived through school. How did I survive? I have no idea. How am I here? I'm so confused.